Welcome to Haunted Talks, the official podcast of the Haunted Walk, offering ghost tours and paranormal adventures in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, Ontario, and online experiences to anyone in this mortal realm. My name is Jim Dean. I am the creative director, and it is my privilege to be your haunted host for this episode. In our last show, we explored the skies above New Jersey, where in late 2024, thousands looked up and saw something they couldn't explain. But not all encounters happen out in the open. Some happen quietly, privately, in the dead of night. And while mass sightings leave us curious, these personal stories, these deeply intimate experiences, they truly haunt us. Because what if the lights in the sky aren't just passing by? What if they are here for us? These aren't just sightings, these are stories of being taken, of being studied, of being changed by an encounter, and left wondering what really happened. Welcome to part 2 of our exploration into UAPs and the paranormal, where today we turn to the stories that frighten us most: abductions, strange visitations, and the terrifying possibility that the visitors aren't just here to observe. And it all begins with one of the most famous and unsettling cases of them all: the story of Betty and Barney Hill. But before we get to that, as the weather finally starts to warm up, it's the perfect time to get outside, meet up with friends, and share a few spooky stories. In fact, frequent guest and Haunted Walk host Margot McDonald and I spent this afternoon on a sunny patio doing just that, catching up on the latest eerie tales and talking about all of the incredible experiences we have lined up for this season. Many of our tours have already returned or will be starting up again very soon. If you live in or will be visiting Kingston, 2 of our most immersive experiences are back for the May long weekend. Ghosts of the SS Keewatin, Tales from the Great Lakes. Step aboard this Titanic-era steamship and hear haunting stories of shipwrecks, phantom vessels, and mysterious disappearances on the Great Lakes. Take the short trip up the hill and join us for Ghosts of Fort Henry. Explore the darkened fort by lantern light and uncover eerie tales of soldiers, prisoners, and strange encounters at one of Canada's most legendary sites. In Ottawa, we're excited to welcome back Tales from the Mausoleum at Beechwood Cemetery on the May long weekend as well. A beautiful and thought-provoking experience inside one of the country's most historic cemeteries. I do want to mention there are only a few weekends left to join us for Alone in the Dark at the Cumberland Heritage Village Museum, our popular paranormal investigation where you stand in the shadows and reach out into the unknown. And as we like to say, choose curiosity over fear. In Toronto, all of our experiences are up and running, and we expect to announce summer dates for Alone in the Dark at the iconic Elgin and Winter Garden Theatres very soon. Stay tuned for that. Those tickets always go quickly. As you start making your summer travel plans, we hope that you'll think of us. We would love to host you and yours on one of our unforgettable experiences in Kingston, Ottawa, or Toronto. For tickets and information, visit hauntedwalk.com. And remember, as a Haunted Talks listener, you can use the promo code Haunted Talks, all one word, at checkout to receive 15% off your tickets. And if you're enjoying the show, we would love it if you could follow, rate, and review Haunted Talks wherever you listen. It's one of the best ways to help more curious minds find the podcast. And we truly appreciate the support. It was the evening of September 19th, 1961, and a middle-aged couple was driving through the northern states. They were on their way home after a late summer vacation in Niagara Falls and Montreal. The stretches of the highway in front of them were dark and deserted at this time of night, but that was how they liked it. There was not much between them and the open sky. It was proving to be a peaceful drive, and they expected to be home within a few hours. Around 10 p.m., Betty noticed a strange light in the sky from her position in the passenger seat. At first, she assumed it was just a bright planet peeking out between the clouds. But as she kept watching, the light began to move erratically. Not the slow drift of a star, nor the steady blink of a plane, but something else. Curious, she reached into the back seat for a pair of binoculars they kept in the car, and leaned forward, trying to get a better look through the windshield. The glow around the object made it hard to decipher the true size or shape of the object, but whatever it was, it didn't seem right. She tried to explain what she was seeing to her husband, Barney. He was the skeptical one. Betty's sister had once claimed to see a UFO, and ever since, Betty had been keeping a close eye on the night sky, often spotting things that turned out to be planes, planets, or weather. Barney was used to reassuring her, and at first, he did what he always did. "It's probably just a plane," he told her. But as the object came into view through the front window, Barney watched it as it moved across the sky and felt his own certainty begin to slip. They kept driving, watching as the craft seemed to follow the highway ahead of them. Its movements became less erratic, less like a plane, and more like something that was watching them. And then it stopped, hovering directly over the road in front of them. Barney hit the brakes hard. The car shuddered to a stop in the middle of the empty highway. The road ahead was clear. The sky was not. Barney was terrified, but he was intent on protecting his wife and car. He got out of the vehicle, a pistol in hand, snatched the binoculars from Betty, and used them to gaze at the unknown craft. He later claimed that he saw a few humanoid figures gazing out the windows. Chillingly, they were looking back at him. He also said that a telepathic message came through from one of them, urging him to stay still and continue looking at the craft. There was no way he was listening to that message. Barney's flight instinct took charge, and he ran as fast as he could back into the car and attempted to drive them away. Suddenly, both Betty and Barney heard a loud, crackling sound, and everything went hazy. When they slowly came to, the couple were still in their car, but had traveled some distance. Neither of them could recall how they got there. They arrived home shortly after, just as the sun was rising. Barney and Betty did a quick calculation in their heads. It seems they had lost a few hours on their journey. They should have pulled into their driveway hours earlier. When they went inside and began their regular routines of life, the couple felt something was off. They noticed that their watches were no longer working and would in fact never be successfully fixed. Barney's new dress shoes had scuff marks on the toes. Both still felt groggy, plagued by strange buzzing sounds in their ears. They decided to independently write and draw what they had experienced the night before, determined to corroborate each other's accounts. After the initial terror of that night began to subside, Betty and Barney sat down for interviews with both government investigators and UFO researchers. This was the early 1960s, a time when the US government was still openly collecting UFO sightings and encouraging reports from the public. As the Hills began to piece together what had happened, more memories started to surface. Some came through vivid, recurring dreams. Others emerged through hypnosis, a technique used by several of the researchers they worked with. Importantly, their sessions were conducted separately. Neither could hear what the other was saying, and yet what they described was eerily similar. Both spoke of being taken aboard the craft. Both remembered humanoid figures. Both recalled being examined closely, clinically, by the beings they encountered. They also spoke of telepathic communication, messages they couldn't quite put into words, thoughts or impressions that seemed to bypass speech entirely. Strangely, in their accounts, neither Betty nor Barney described feeling especially afraid while the encounter was happening. But as they recalled the events, again and again, the fear began to take hold. In remembering, the terror found them. Barney and Betty Hill were an ordinary couple, leading a fairly ordinary life, until an encounter with the unknown changed everything. For Barney, his initial skepticism died away, and he was left wondering what exactly had happened. Certainly, it had happened, but unsure what it was. Betty began a lifetime journey in the ufology community and became a major proponent of telepathic communication with extraterrestrials, something we touched on a bit in our last episode. Although Barney and Betty never had another encounter themselves, both stuck by their stories until the very end, certain they had been abducted by aliens. Stories of alien abductions might be the most unsettling tales of our modern era, the ones that truly get under our skin. Ghost encounters can leave us shaken, but the idea of something more advanced than us, more capable, studying us, taking us without our consent, that strikes a much deeper chord. And perhaps what makes these stories so disturbing is also what makes them so difficult to prove. Unless an abduction leaves something physical, a scar, an implant, an injury, there's often no tangible evidence that the event ever took place. In the paranormal world, we know this challenge well. Many ghostly encounters also happen when no one else is around. Just a single witness, left to wonder if anyone will believe them. And like abductions, they often leave no trace. At least, not a physical one. But as compelling as these personal stories can be, the scientific method urges caution. Without corroboration, without additional proof, the question remains: how do we separate what might be real from what we simply want to believe? Even when they're difficult to prove, abduction stories raise one of the most troubling questions of all. What do they want with us? In the paranormal world, we wrestle with similar questions about intention. When it comes to ghosts, beliefs about their motives are wide-ranging and often contradictory. Some hold fast to the idea that spirits are evil, dark energies, and best to be avoided at all costs. Others believe the exact opposite, that these encounters are messages from a higher power, signs and signals meant to comfort or guide us. But most paranormal researchers fall somewhere in between. Ghosts, it seems, can behave in ways both helpful and harmful, but more often they simply carry on, echoes of life. But when it comes to extraterrestrials, perspectives on intention tend to lean darker. Many who believe in alien visitors are convinced that these beings aren't here to help us, but to study us, to observe, experiment, perhaps even interfere. In the minds of many, we are the subjects of an experiment we never signed up for. And if that's true, if these encounters really are examinations, not accidents, then abduction stories become the most terrifying possibility of them all. While a small number of abductees describe their experience as transcendent or enlightening, most are left shaken, traumatized, marked by a sense of violation that goes far beyond the physical. It's striking, then, to compare these stories with how we talk about ghosts. Many paranormal investigators hope for contact, welcoming a brush with the unknown, the chance to witness something for themselves. But in the world of ufology, few researchers are eager for the experience of an abduction. Watching the skies is one thing. Being taken or having a direct encounter is quite another. Across the windswept plains of the American Midwest in the early 1970s, a chilling pattern began to emerge. Farmers awoke to gruesome scenes. Cattle lying dead in their fields, with precise, surgical incisions. Tongues removed, eyes gone, sometimes the ears, always clean, always bloodless. The air was still, the fields eerily silent. There were no tracks in the snow, no sign of struggle, no predators, just the unsettling quiet and the bodies left behind. As the fear spread, so did the sightings. Witnesses spoke of strange light drifting above the pastures, hovering silently, casting an unnatural glow that seemed to hum against the darkness. Was it a warning? A message? Or an experiment in progress? As with most mass witnessed events, talk slowly spread across the region, and more cases were discovered. Whatever was happening, it seemed deliberate, clinical, and terrifying in its precision. Some cases proved easily explainable. A sudden illness, poisoned food, an attack by a large predator stalking the area. But a sizable number of the deaths were unattributed. There was no single comprehensive explanation for any of it, just more questions. As we might expect, the animal mutilations were accompanied by other strange occurrences, namely the odd lights in the sky and the strange sounds at night. As the fear and panic spread, the incidents suddenly came to an abrupt halt. But before long, the mutilations showed up in another part of the world, and the frenzy kicked off all over again. For people who accept the alien explanation, livestock mutilation is proof that extraterrestrials have little regard for life on Earth, and are simply here to study it. And if they can do that to cattle, what can they do to us? With so many sightings, so many reports, you think by now we'd have some answers. But the truth is, we don't. Or at least, not publicly. According to many in the ufology community, plenty of research has been done, and potential answers have been discovered, but it's happening behind very closed and secret doors. There are lots of hushed conspiracy theories out there. Secret government ops, special laboratories, hidden files, proof of alien bodies, and caches of evidence from crashed UAPs. July 1947. A violent storm tears across the desert outside of Roswell, New Mexico. The next morning, a local rancher, Mac Brazel, finds something strange scattered across his land. Shards of silver, unnaturally smooth and impossibly light. According to some accounts, the metal could bend like rubber, but snap back into place without a crease. Decades later, some would even claim that bodies were discovered near the site. The military was quick to arrive, quick to collect, and even quicker to change their story. One day, we've recovered a flying saucer. The next, it was just a weather balloon. But the published pictures of crumpled foil and wooden sticks didn't seem to match the descriptions given by several witnesses who had seen the debris firsthand. Something, it seemed, was off. The official story began to crumble in 1978. That's when Jesse Marcel, a former Air Force officer directly involved in the Roswell recovery, finally broke his silence. The weather balloon explanation, he admitted, had been a lie, a cover story, and he would know because he helped to cover it up. Marcel claimed he had handled the debris himself, material unlike anything he had ever seen. And more disturbingly, he suggested there had been bodies recovered at the site, not human. The revelation ignited public fascination. The story was captured in a best-selling book, fueling what would become a tidal wave of speculation and conspiracy. Some of the claims that followed were outlandish, but many stuck. In the early 1980s, Roswell wasn't just a small-town mystery anymore. It was the epicenter of the UFO conversation, the symbol of a cover-up too big, too strange to ignore. And the questions didn't stop there. They turned toward the desert itself, toward the other rumored secrets hiding in the sand. Area 51. Black projects. Craft reversed engineered from something not of this earth. For serious researchers, there are other incidents they believe deserve more attention, less famous, but perhaps harder to dismiss. But for most, Roswell and Area 51 remain the landmarks of a larger mystery, a sign that something happened, and that someone still isn't telling the truth. What's striking about mass-reported incidents is how quickly they disappear. Sometimes they are actively shut down, and witnesses are shunned so thoroughly that others hesitate to come forward. It's March 13th, 1997, just hours after sunset in Phoenix, Arizona. A formation of lights appears in the darkening sky. Triangular, massive, silent. Some witnesses would later say the object was so large, so close, it blotted out the stars overhead, turning the night sky itself into a shadow. Others debated whether it was one solid craft or a perfect V-shaped formation of independent lights, moving in eerie, unnatural synchronization. But on one thing, they all agreed. There was something strange in the sky. Cars pulled over, entire neighborhoods came out onto porches, pilots radioed in confused reports. For nearly 3 hours, the lights drifted, slowly, deliberately, casting a quiet spell over the desert city. And then came the ridicule. At a press conference the following day, the governor of Arizona brought out a staffer dressed in an alien costume.
And now I'll ask Officer Stein and his colleagues to escort the accused into the room so that we may all look upon the guilty party. Don't get him too close to me, please.
In the alien costume, the governor's chief of staff.
Now, this just goes to show that you guys are entirely too serious.
The crowd laughed. The witnesses did not. For those who had stood frozen on their porches, watching the sky, knowing what they saw, the laughter was a slap in the face. The message was clear. Come forward, and you'll be laughed at too. With all this public ridicule, it's surprising that anyone wants to go on the record with an encounter, even when what they saw was unmistakable. But in 2006, at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, they did. At least a dozen employees of United Airlines, including seasoned pilots, ground crew, and air traffic staff, reported seeing a dark, disc-shaped object hovering near gate C-17. It silently remained there for several minutes, rotating slowly in place. Those watching from the terminal could clearly discern its odd lights and baffling, seamless shape. Then, without warning, the object shot straight upward, piercing a thick layer of clouds above. In its wake, it left something tangible, a perfect gaping hole in the cloud ceiling. A doorway punched into the sky. Several witnesses including pilots, described how the hole lingered there, unmoving, for minutes afterward. But for all the testimony, one thing was conspicuously absent: a photograph. It's a question that still hangs over the O'Hare incident. Why wasn't there a single image captured of the craft or the hole it left behind? The answer, frustrating as it may be, might be the simplest. The object was only visible for a few minutes. Most of the witnesses were United Airlines employees, on duty, caught off guard, standing behind terminal windows, without cameras at the ready. This was 2006, a time when smartphones were rare, and even the few that had cameras weren't particularly up to the task. Some later admitted they were too stunned by what they were seeing to even think about documenting it. Others, perhaps, were afraid of repercussions, knowing full well how their claims might be received. And by the time the object had punched through the clouds and vanished, it was already too late. When the incident was first reported to the FAA, officials dismissed it as a weather phenomenon. But the witnesses knew better. They knew the skies. Quietly, United Airlines employees were discouraged from speaking publicly about what they had seen. But some refused to stay silent. Their accounts, later compiled by the Chicago Tribune, never wavered.
I've been at O'Hare for quite some time, and I'll tell you definitely it was not an airplane as we know it.
And yet, like so many strong UAP cases, the headlines disappeared almost as quickly as they came. The story fell silent, but the witnesses never forgot. But why all the secrecy? To explore that question, let's step back for a moment and consider the paranormal. Have you ever heard an official government statement about the existence of ghosts? Has a military general ever stepped up to a podium to declare that a haunting has been confirmed? It's hard to even imagine. The idea sounds almost laughable, even to those of us who take the paranormal seriously. But when it comes to UAPs, that moment has already happened. There have been briefings, press conferences, official reports. Not enough to give us clear answers, but enough to suggest that something is out there. And that someone, somewhere, knows more than they're willing to say. For many researchers, the reason for that silence comes down to one thing: technology. Think about the stories we've explored so far. Objects that defy the known laws of physics, crafts that can hover silently, accelerate instantly, or vanish without a trace. Beings who can communicate telepathically. Technologies that, if real, wouldn't just rewrite science, they'd forever change the balance of power. If anyone has begun to understand how these things work, there's every reason to keep that knowledge hidden. Not out of malice necessarily, but out of strategy. Because in a world full of rivals, the greatest advantage of all is knowing something they don't. For many ufologists, there's another reason they believe the truth has been kept hidden for so long. Imagine for a moment what full disclosure would actually look like. A world leader steps forward, the cameras roll, and they say the words out loud. There is evidence of UAPs. Tangible proof. Studied, verified, confirmation that extraterrestrials have been here on Earth. It's a scenario that almost feels impossible to picture, because the consequences would be hard to contain. Mass panic? A collapse of trust? The sudden realization that governments have lied for decades, and that we are not alone. As much as we love the paranormal on this podcast, it's hard to imagine a similar global reaction if someone announced tomorrow that ghosts are real. It would be unsettling, yes, but it probably wouldn't shake the foundations of society. And let's be honest, no one is racing to weaponize ghost technology. Of course, there has been some limited disclosure around UAPs over the past decade. Many ufologists will tell you it's more than the government and militaries have admitted before, though still only a small crack in the door. A quiet acknowledgement that, for all our science and certainty, there's still plenty of unknowns in our skies. But even that small crack has been enough to turn heads, especially for those just beginning to explore the subject. Some of the most striking pieces of evidence to emerge are what we now know as the Pentagon UFO videos. First leaked in 2017, then officially released by the US Department of Defense in 2020, these clips, captured on forward-looking infrared targeting cameras on US fighter jets, show objects performing maneuvers that seem, by every known standard, impossible. In one video, an object zips across the water at incredible speed, then abruptly stops, hovering before pivoting mid-air. In another, a formation of lights splits off in multiple directions, as if defying the laws of inertia entirely. Throughout the footage, we hear the stunned voices of the pilots themselves, trained observers, baffled by what they're seeing. Their disbelief caught on the recordings.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west. Look at that thing, dude. Well, if there's another thing, it's rotating. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow. Look at it fly.
Over time, the Pentagon confirmed that these videos are authentic. They aren't camera glitches, they weren't weather anomalies. What they show are physical objects, craft of some kind behaving in ways that no known human technology can replicate. And while the Pentagon has never gone so far as to call these objects extraterrestrial, they've also been clear about what they're willing to say. These are unidentified aerial phenomena. Not tricks of the eye, not flocks of birds, but true unknowns. For many in the UFO research community, this is the closest we've come to an official admission. Not proof, perhaps, but a strong nod toward possibility. That small crack in the door. And for those willing to keep looking, maybe, just maybe, the first glimpse of something waiting on the other side. As we near the end of this episode, there's one more question worth asking. One that pulls us back to familiar ground, but also into far stranger territory. What if these aren't separate mysteries? What if the lights in the sky and the shadowy figures in haunted houses are not unrelated? What if they are glimpses of the same thing, seen through different lenses? Are ghosts just another form of aliens? Or are aliens something closer to ghosts? It's a possibility that's been whispered at the edges of paranormal research for decades, but perhaps no one wrestled with it more famously than John Keel. You may remember Keel from our folklore series. He was the author of the Mothman Prophecies, the investigator who chronicled the eerie events that unfolded in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. But Mothman was only part of the story. Throughout his career, Keel kept circling back to one unsettling idea: that UFOs, extraterrestrials, cryptids, and ghosts might not be separate puzzles at all. Instead, they might be threads woven into the same strange tapestry. Although he began his work believing these encounters could be explained through traditional scientific methods, Keel's research led him somewhere else entirely. Over time, he came to favor a much stranger possibility: that these beings, whatever they are not visitors from another planet, but something already here, something of this world. Over the course of his research, Keel explored several possible explanations, but one of the most intriguing was what he called the breakaway civilization theory. The idea that thousands of years ago, an advanced group of humans split off from the rest of humanity, accelerating their technology and their knowledge far beyond our own. Some believe this breakaway civilization still lives among us, hidden, watching. Others suggest they left entirely, dwelling somewhere else in the universe, returning only now and then to check in on the rest of us, kind of like when a distant relative comes back to town. According to this theory, it's these beings, this lost civilization, this obscure part of humanity, that might be behind the strange and unexplained, the sightings of cryptids, the flashes of telepathy, the eerie encounters with what we call ghosts. But Keel wasn't fully convinced by that idea alone. The deeper he went, the more he began to favor something even stranger: that those beings, whoever or whatever they are, aren't from another world at all. They're from another dimension. In this view, UFOs, spirits, and unexplained entities aren't visitors from space. They're interdimensional travelers, moving between realms, crossing into our world only briefly, leaving behind glimpses, questions, and fear. Of course, John Keel's theories aren't easy for everyone to embrace. Even today, many serious researchers in the ufology community remain skeptical of the breakaway civilization idea, or the notion of interdimensional visitors slipping between worlds. For those looking for something more grounded in science, there is another lens through which some have tried to make sense of these mysteries, and that's using quantum physics. Now, we're not going to pretend to unpack the complexities of quantum theory here, and I'm not sure I'm qualified to do so, but this field has offered intriguing questions about the nature of reality and about consciousness itself. Some quantum researchers argue that physical laws, as we currently understand them, can't fully explain the mind, how we perceive, how we experience, how we connect. Consciousness remains one of the great unanswered questions of science. And it's here, at the blurry edges where physics meets philosophy, that some have begun to wonder. Could this also be where the paranormal lives? Could ghosts, UFOs, and other unexplained phenomena be linked not by place, but by the very fabric of reality? Perhaps not visitors from somewhere else, but glimpses of something we're not yet equipped to understand. Although some of these branches of quantum physics remain contested, they certainly demonstrate that we humans don't know everything. We look for explanations. We conduct research. We try to demonstrate how everything works. but the universe remains filled with mysteries that continue to elude us. Some would argue we can't definitively know anything at all. Instead, the world may simply be a collection of experiences, some explainable, others beyond our grasp. And yet, this uncertainty is what keeps paranormal researchers and ufologists alike returning to their investigations, gathering reports, and asking questions. But it also raises the issue: what kind of evidence would truly be enough? Enough to convince us that ghosts are real, or that we're regularly visited by beings from another planet. So where does that leave us now? For decades, witnesses like Barney and Betty Hill, and so many others, have stepped forward to share their stories. Stories of missing time, of strange lights, of beings that seem to cross not just the sky, but the boundaries between what we know and what we fear. Some of these stories come with significant evidence. Many do not. But all of them come with consequences. Confusion, ridicule, isolation, sometimes unexpected insight. And yet, still, people keep sharing them. Because to witness something extraordinary and stay silent might be worse. Maybe one day, someone will find that final piece of proof, that undeniable evidence that ends the debate for once and for all, whether about UAPs or the paranormal. But even if that day comes, I wonder, will it truly satisfy us? Or will it only open the door to deeper, even more challenging questions? In the end, perhaps it's not the answers that keep us searching, but the mystery itself, the need to understand, the hope that the next witness, the next quiet moment, the next brush with the unknown, might hold the truth we've been looking for. Until then, we keep asking, we keep listening, and of course, we keep looking up. Thank you so much for joining us for this two-part journey into the strangeness in our skies. For information and tickets for any of our ghost tours or paranormal adventures in Kingston, Ottawa, or Toronto, Ontario, please visit our website, hauntedwalk.com. We'd also love to connect with you on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, all three at Haunted Walk. As always, special thanks to our hardworking Haunted Talks team, including Michelle Dennis, our outstanding audio editor, and Brittany Buss, who researched and wrote this episode. Until we meet again, the truth is out there, and sweet dreams.